How much did you love that car?
A lot.
He loved that car.
She just started running really, really rough. And by the time I got it over to the side of the road, it had died.
Well, hello, Kev and Claire here from Vision Prestige. Welcome back to the channel. Thanks for coming back. I'm going to leave that little Seat in there today. I'm not going to have a door. It's just Sunday. I've just come in to do a bit of filming. I'm going to leave that door closed because that's going out tomorrow and I don't want to get it all dusty. Anyway, hope you're all well. So I actually filmed quite a lot of this video a good few months ago when we had a particular customer come in. A particular customer had a bit of an issue, as you will have seen right at the start of this video, a little snippet. And I had a very similar issue to him. Not as bad, but a very similar issue to him at roughly the same sort of time, and you'll see me on this video a little bit later on. But just to start this video off and to get it to make a little bit of sense, we need to have a little bit of a history lesson here, mainly on the emissions systems of cars. So back in the early 90s, around about 1992, it was the introduction of the catalytic converter on petrol cars. It was around about the K plate, LK plate. I remember that well because that was back when we were all modifying cars. We didn't care about what was going out into the air. All we cared about was how quick we could get the emissions out of cars to generate more power. And that catalytic converter restricted it in the exhaust. I remember it well because it borderline influenced my decision to buy a 3-door Cosworth that was made in 1986 compared to one that was in 1993 because it had a cat on it. Luckily they thought about that because I've got kids now and I'm glad that they can breathe a little bit better. Anyway, sort of 2000, early 2000 and onwards, everyone was sort of pushed into diesels. It didn't matter whether you only did a few miles to the shops and back. Everyone was sort of pushed into diesels. They were cheaper to tax. They do a lot more miles per gallon. All of the car salesmen all over the country were just pushing everyone into diesels unless you bought a Honda Jazz because they didn't make a diesel. Anyway, this didn't seem to be a problem. You know, people were quite happy when they were new. There was no problem about it, but cars from around about 2008 onwards, most of them diesels, were fitted with what's called a DPF, a diesel particulate filter, which if you've already had issues with your DPF, you will already know that, and you probably didn't know that when you bought the car. Unfortunately, everyone seems to realise how a DPF works and how it doesn't work when it's a little bit too late. So just so you understand what's going on, this is how a DPF works. So when a diesel engine runs, a byproduct of burning diesel is soot. Unfortunately, diesel engines create soot when they work. It's why the engine oil goes black really quick in a diesel compared to in a petrol. Anyway, that soot is collected in a big canister in your exhaust, depending on how old your car is. But if you drive a modern diesel now, there's probably a very high reality that it's got a DPF fitted to it. Well, this is how it works. This soot, I'll show you on the screen now, this soot congregates in this DPF. And every 300 to 1,000 miles, depending on what vehicle you're driving and how you drive it, it goes through what's called a regeneration cycle. And the engine, depending on what speed you're going and what sort of state of driving you're currently doing, depends on how that DPF regenerates. But most of the time it regenerates when you're driving along. It injects extra diesel into the engine to make the exhaust temperature go up to between about 600 to 800 degrees, depending on what it is. It's very, very hot. It's a controlled fire within this canister to burn off the soot. The soot turns from a harmful soot into CO2 and it spits it out the back and no one knows about it. That's how it's supposed to work. Well, the problem is if you don't do the miles and you don't do the journeys, it doesn't work like that. And this is where the big problem comes in. Let's go and sit in the office, hold on. So, as you will see here, the problems don't occur when you just do normal miles. If you get up and do 30 miles a day on a dual carriageway, and so if you watch this diagram, you can see the soot building up inside the DPF, and then when it starts to regenerate, you can see the soot content going down and spitting out the back of the car. That's fine. If you do 30 miles every day on a dual carriageway, you won't have a problem. The problem occurs with the people that are doing short journeys. And I mean, I'm well late into the game here. This has been going on for years and years and years. I'm only just making a video about it, but that's purely because we had this situation and my situation. Problem occurs when a regeneration cycle is either sitting there at idle for too long and then you turn your car off because it injects more diesel into the engine to be able to regenerate. Certain cars will carry on the regeneration cycle to an extent when you turn the car off, certain cars don't. And the ones that don't are the problem what happened in this situation and my situation unbeknown to me. Now, what you're about to see is a reconstruction but based on real life events because I was on the way to my mate's pub, all right Phil, to see Phil and the mates and have a little bit of chat about the world and then this happened. Engine oil level too high. How the hell can my engine oil level be too high? I've got to pull over. Is there too much engine oil in this van? What is going on? Ugh. It's all the way up here. That's diesel. Oh. Now this is a weird light to be coming on because I haven't done an oil change for about 4 months. So, and the reality of that situation is there's only ever one way that an oil level should go when you're using a vehicle. The Vito doesn't really use oil, but it definitely doesn't go up. It worried me a bit because I sort of potentially knew straight away what it might be because it's pretty much the only way you can ever get more oil in your engine unless you've got a dodgy sensor and it's giving you a dodgy warning. That oil level was about 5 mil over what it should have been. And it put me in a bit of a panic here. That Vito holds about 10 litres of oil on an oil change. So the way, you know, the amount that had gone up, I knew it didn't have a massive amount of diesel in it, but at the same time I knew it wasn't just completely oil circulating around my engine. So I started to flap a little bit. I had two choices there. I either get it picked up so I can turn it off straight away and leave it off, or I drove it home. Well, rightly or wrongly, I drove it home. But that situation led on to this situation, and this is why it happened. What that's actually led to is me being here at 7 o'clock at night, working on my old van. I love this van. Anyone that knows, I just absolutely adore this van. And what this has sort of led me to end up needing to do, unbeknown to me, what had actually happened is the van weren't getting up to temperature without me knowing. So the problem is with Vitos, they haven't got a constant temperature gauge on the instrument cluster. You have to go through the menu to get it up on the digital instrument cluster, which in reality, unless I'm towing the caravan, I don't really need to know whether the thing's getting up to temperature because you assume that it is. And I've been assuming that this has been getting up to temperature for however long, shall we say, without me realising. For anyone that doesn't know, diesel engines that have got diesel particulate filters on them, they need to get up to temperature. There needs to be certain criteria that the engine must hit to allow a regeneration cycle to start. Things like battery voltage, coolant temperature, oil temperature, blah, blah, blah. All of these need to be at a certain level before a regeneration cycle will start. Dumps a load of diesel into the engine, into the DPF to burn the soot that has been accumulated in the DPF. And it ends up spitting out the back, some smoke, some don't. But it usually takes about 5 to 10 minutes to regen, and it usually needs to be going at a certain speed, so it will only work when you're driving along. So most people don't even know. A lot of people, especially people with Volkswagen Audi group cars, will know when they turn their car off and sometimes the fan is going boo! They do it all the time, they do. Audis, Volkswagens, Skodas, Seats, they all do it. They want to regen all the time. That's how you know when it's doing it. These don't. And in reality, I didn't know that this hadn't been doing regenerations, because the thermostat, which is what we're doing here, so here's the thermostat, it's got a V6 engine in this, here's the thermostat in the middle of the V here, if I can get it out, one-handed, oh, there you go, and there it is, that's the thermostat. What's happening is the thermostat is stuck open, so what this engine is trying to do is trying to heat up the whole engine, the radiator, the heater matrix, everything all at the same time, which takes forever. So what I've been doing is I've been driving to work, I've been driving around, picking people up, picking blah, 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 blah. I didn't know that this thing has either not been doing regens, or I've been stopping it halfway through a regeneration cycle, and I'm doing the thermostat to make sure this gets up the temperature so it carries on doing its regen cycles. But it's just sort of led me on to this video to have another little rant. I'm having another rant, ain't I? About DPFs. You know, I've been going on about them for ages to customers and people like that don't do the miles, but they've never directly affected me. That's never really directly affected us, full stop, because we've never had a DPF problem. You know, we don't buy Ingenium Range Rovers, they have a lot of diesel DPF problems, but this has affected me, so I thought I'd make a video about it. Well, not long after that, we had a guy contact us with a Jaguar XF, and you're about to meet him. Lovely, lovely guy. You're about to meet me. I can't remember if I come out of that door or not, but he's standing here with the car that he is now buying from us because of the situation that he's just had. And the exact thing happened to him, but on a worse scale. So you can meet him now. Hello, Jeff.
Hi.
Right, Jeff. Oh, this is going to make sense because I'm going to put this in a video where I've already just been talking about the problem that goes on with diesels. And I'm not going to preempt anything because I want you to say why you're here. Now, admittedly, he has bought this lovely car. I'm going to say there's a positive out of this, Jeff, because you're now the new owner of this beautiful A4 Avant. It's a beautiful car. But Absolutely. Do you mind just saying why you're here?
Because my Jaguar 3-litre diesel, the engine seized, the crankshaft seized, because of the regeneration, the DPF regeneration process.
And that's interesting. So this video is obviously, you've just seen me working on my Vito, you've seen what happened to it. The reason my Vito didn't do exactly what Jeff's Jag did is because the Vito has got a sensor on it that says when the oil is too high. I've never seen it before. I know they're sensitive to it because I used to work at Merck's, obviously, but that's what saved my Vito. And as far as I know, the Jags haven't got a too high sensor. I've never seen one. So as far as I know, they haven't got one. And poor Jeff had a 2014 XF with how many miles on?
42,000.
How much did you love that car?
A lot.
He loved that car, and you didn't really understand why the engine had failed with that miles on, did there? Was no reason.
There was no, when it happened, there was no warning lights. There'd been no warning over the previous weeks. I was just driving it, getting it ready for an oil change, to be honest. And yeah, just started running really, really rough. And by the time I got it over to the side of the road, it had died. And the engine was seized.
Purely because the diesel had gone into the sump and the engine was trying to be lubricated by diesel instead of oil.
Yeah.
Which, Jeff was kind enough to come on the channel because I felt like that was a perfect example of how horrific DPFs are.
Yeah.
And in reality, if someone had have given you that knowledge before, maybe the salesman that sold you that car and you said, look, predominantly it's going to be getting low journeys, because you have had DPF problems with that car before, haven't you?
Yeah, we've had the DPF not blocked, but the yellow warning saying DPF filter is full, or take it for a long drive.
That's it.
Which we did.
Sorry about the wind. Winter time's coming, in it, because it was trying to do its thing and it couldn't do it because of the short journeys.
Yeah.
But you weren't to know that.
No.
And so that's what this video is about. So I thought, yes, all right, we've sold a car because of it, which is horrific. I know, I'm sorry about that. But going forward, you won't have the problems with this because
it's petrol.
It's a 2-litre petrol, and you can do the shorter journeys. It'll be fine.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for coming on. I wanted to put that on because it will emphasise what we're moaning about.
If it helps somebody else not have the same pain,
hopefully it will.
then yeah, I'm all for it. So yeah.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Well, there you go. What can I say? We've got to say thanks to Jeff for coming on the channel. He was quite happy to come on the channel. Really lovely guy. I mean, that's it for that one. Please put your comments down below if you've had DPF issues for a similar reason to me or Jeff, or just we know there's going to be a gazillion of them out there. Everyone you speak to knows someone that's had a DPF issue. People are mapping them out. People are. It's just one of them things on a car. Potentially people weren't educated to how you need to drive a car if you're driving a modern diesel. Is it a good idea? Anything's got to be a good idea that's making the air cleaner, isn't it, at the end of the day? I mean, were they designed to fail for the car manufacturers to make more money? Who knows? It's just cleaner air is better. There's no denying that. Thanks for watching this video. Hit that subscribe button if you like what's going on. Give us a thumbs up, give us a comment. Thanks to everyone that watches. We'll get Claire on the channel some more. There's some more videos coming up. We'll get some more content now. We've just come back from holiday. We had a nice time, but we needed a little bit of a refresh. Thanks a lot, everyone. We'll see you on the next one. Bye, 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 bye.